Are you applying for college, but you still need to write your college essay? Did you already write your college essay, but you're worried you're going to get clocked? Hi, I'm Dr. Clay Zuba, inventor of Zubify. Writing your college essay can seem overwhelming because it feels like everything depends on it. But if you watch this video to the end, you'll write an essay that won't get clocked because everyone will be able to tell that you know what time it is. Yes! If you're watching this video, it's my guess that this isn't the first essay you've written, but it can be a little tricky because the stakes are higher and it's a different audience than your high school teachers. To slay this essay, you probably don't need to learn new writing skills, but you should follow the advice that I'm giving you in this video. You should make sure that you answer the prompt, and you should always think about your audience. Speaking of that audience, your audience here is not your high school teacher, but it is a little bit similar. It's a college admissions officer. The college admissions officer will evaluate your writing, but they're looking for more than that here. They're looking for authentic voices and distinctive perspectives, and they're assessing your self-awareness and growth potential, as well as how they think you might fit in on their campus. These factors have to inform every choice you make. Your essay is being read for evidence of how you think, as well as evidence of how well you write. This reader is thinking about how you respond to challenges, and they're reading fast. So you have to make sure that you make every word count and use vivid language. Let's look at the Common App prompts for 2025 and 26. You can choose any one of these prompts on the screen here. But this prompt about obstacles and how you respond to them is by far the most common one that my students choose. That's the one I'm going to focus in on this essay. If you choose one of the other essays, that's great. You're choosing a lesser followed path and one that could be distinctive to your admissions officer. Even so, the advice I'm going to give you in this video is still going to help you succeed. Whichever one you choose, you need to write with under 650 words, and you need to think carefully about your word choices and your structure. The number one mistake that I see students making is focusing on narration without sufficient analysis. Whatever you choose to write about might be really emotional for you, and you might be tempted to immerse yourself in those emotions and run wild with your writing. But the admissions officer is not here to read just about that. They're not here to read a story. They're here to read an essay. They want a thesis-driven essay about growth. Think of your essay as having two essential components. One are the narrative elements that show your challenge. Two, the analytical elements that explain your growth. A strong structure looks like this. It has an introduction with an implied thesis about your growth. It has a brief but vivid account of the challenge that you're overcoming in this essay. It has an analysis of how it affected you, a reflection on the lessons learned, and a conclusion that looks forward. Admissions officers are scanning for reflection. They're less interested in what happened to you and more interested in how you responded to it and what it reveals about your character. I often hear students describe this prompt as a trauma dump, but that is wrong. This admission officer is not looking for someone who thinks that their challenges and trauma define them. Instead, your response to them does. That should be your focus, and this is what admissions officers are looking for. Today's helper is Baby Snuggles. Sometimes she just likes to sit in this box, and she helps. She can watch what I'm doing. She could put her hand in a hole. She can look around. She can make a noise. She's a baby helper. Thank you, Snug. Thanks for helping. Now, let's walk through the structure of this essay, step by step. The first two parts of the structure that I described to you should be in your introduction. Your introduction should have a brief and vivid account of your challenge, an implied thesis about growth. This sounds easy enough, but you need to show self-control as you're writing about your challenge. As I described earlier, you might be tempted to really immerse yourself and write really flowery prose and think this is what will make you succeed. And if you're tempted to write kind of an extensive narrative about your experience, that's okay. Just cut it down later, delete some of it, and condense it. Let's look at a weak introduction followed by a strong introduction. Weak introduction first. Last year, I made a significant challenge when I didn't make the varsity basketball team. This is okay, but it's not very exciting. Here's a stronger introduction with a stronger hook, followed by more descriptive language. The coach's roster didn't include my name, a 17-letter absence that collapsed the future I'd imagined since third grade. See what a stronger hook that is? Then the writer goes on to give the reader some more context. The strong example establishes the emotional stakes immediately. It uses specific details to show significance. It creates a clear before state. And most importantly, it ends with a thesis that previews the essay's focus. Your growth thesis should be specific to your experience. It's not a generic life lesson. It should establish what you believed before, what you understand now, and hint at how this transformation occurred. Next, create body paragraphs that balance narrative structure with strategic analysis that demonstrates your growth process. I'm going to again show you a strong paragraph as well as a weak paragraph. Here's the weak paragraph. After failing the chemistry test, I studied harder. I created flashcards and formed a study group. Eventually, my grades improved. Here's the strong paragraph. See how much more descriptive this is? It's a lot more detailed, it shows process, and it shows outcomes. It focuses on analysis while using specific moments of narration and evidence. And it demonstrates a specific realization that catalyzed the experience. In this example, your next paragraph could go on to show how you developed an idea of how important critical thinking is to chemistry. Each body paragraph should advance your growth thesis with both reflection and concrete evidence. If you come upon a paragraph that you've written and it really isn't advancing your thesis and it doesn't have very much reflection about growth, you should probably delete that paragraph so your essay can be more focused. Now, conclude your essay by reflecting on how your growth is manifested in your life, creating who you are now. But end with a sentence that looks forward. You can create a hook and return conclusion by returning to language that was in your introduction. In our example, we're going to connect to the basketball moment that we began with. For this example, assume that the writer's essay showed a transition from being a basketball player to helping others in a community clinic. Conclusion. 3 years after the devastating roster posting, I still don't wear a varsity jacket. But as I guide our basketball clinic, I no longer measure leadership by titles on a roster. You can see how it goes on. This example uses specific language that anchors the conclusion in the introduction's narrative. It reaffirms the growth thesis with evidence of continued development, and in doing so, it creates a satisfying sense of narrative cohesion. After you've brainstormed this essay and written 1 or 2 drafts, it's time to revise. Here are some tips for revision. 1. Avoid cliches and generic insights. Instead of saying, I learned perseverance, try something like, I discovered that resilience comes from creating systems to recover quickly, not avoiding failure entirely. Use an active voice that shows agency. Instead of mistakes were made, say something like, I made mistakes. 3. Use vivid and concise language. Replace a phrase like very bad with one word, like miserable or terrible or devastating. Instead of green lawn, say lush grass. Be as vivid and distinct as possible. 4. Check for coherence. Every paragraph should advance your growth thesis. Remove anything that doesn't contribute to that through line. Finally, read your essay aloud to catch awkward phrasing and ensure that it sounds authentically like you. Remember that admissions officers can spot artificial sophistication immediately. And yes, I said artificial for a reason. I'm alluding to the artificial intelligence that you're probably considering using to write this essay. AI sounds like AI. It doesn't sound like you, and it doesn't sound like a person that a college admissions officer wants to admit to their university. Remember these 3 takeaways. Structure matters. This is a thesis-driven essay about growth. It's not a story about you. It isn't about your feelings, it's about growth. Remember that specific moments and language create memorability for the reader. And remember that your introduction and conclusion should form a cohesive frame that shows your evolution. Authenticity and thoughtful reflection will always outweigh drama. The best essays aren't about the biggest problems, they're about the most meaningful insights. I hope this video helped you write your college admission essay. If you've got more questions or ideas, please leave them in the comments below. Thanks for watching Zubify. Come back for more Zubify.